line ho, uyu line lelo mwana mene, mwana wanzeru, line ho,
line ho, uyu line lelo mwana mene, mwana wanzeru, ukacha mama wa amatengazaje, kusesa pakomo pamaivaje.
Ukacha mama
Early morning
amatengazaje,
kusesa pakomo pamaivaje.
magolo aline amuyamikira
akuti line lelo mwana mene, mwana wanzeru.
magolo aline amuyamikira
akuti line lelo mwana mene, mwana wanzeru. Line ho, uyu line lelo mwana mene, mwana wanzeru.
Tinde line ho,
uyu line lelo mwana mene, mwana wanzeru.
agire gogo wana madingo namuyamikira kuti na madingo mwana mene, mwana wanzeru. Agire gogo wana madingo namuyamikira
kuti na madingo mwana mene,
mwana wanzeru.
simuku na mago
Talizina
ni malota ine, bambo wanga tandisi na
salandeka. Talizina
mwe ni malota ine, bambo wanga tamwali na
salandeka. Gondo mama, gondo une mama mwe, gondo mama chalamanda
tafera moenda we. Gondo mama, gondo une mama mwe, gondo mama chalamanda utafera moenda we. Yesu
Right. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, depending on where you're watching us from. My own name is Samuel Oludare Yerokun, and you're right on to OY Media Scotland. Today is the 8th of August, 2021, and we will be taking on something very, very important today. It's a landmark event. It's the 64th anniversary of the achievement of self-determination in Nigeria, and that is the motion that was placed by Chief Obafemi Awolowo. We will be interviewing Mr. Femi Odedeyi from Yoruba Referendum Committee later on in the program. But in the meantime, we'll be taking short news highlights, and after that, we'll be coming right back to Mr. Odedeyi. So please do stay on with us. Right on the news highlight today, we will be taking just two. Remember, at quarter past, Mr. Femi Odedeyi will be joining us. And the first one we'll be picking, that will be taking, is regarding the Home Office as usual. And this comes under the heading Migrant Website set up by Home Office decried as unethical. And this is coming on from Guardian, and I will take that quickly. The Home Office has been censored for setting up a website that purports to provide independent advice to migrants considering traveling to the UK, but without making it clear that our department is behind it. It has been reported that the Chartered Institute of Public Relations, CIPR, condemned the Home Office for producing an unethical website aimed at deterring people from attempting to seek refuge in the UK. We'll leave it at that. I mean, you can follow that by going to the Guardian, and that was just for yesterday by Dan Taylor. That's Saturday, 7 August 2021. Then Taylor, and it comes under the heading Migrant Website set up by Home Office decried as unethical. And of course, the second one quickly, and this is regarding terrorist leaders in Africa that have been blacklisted by the United States. The United States Department on Friday added 5 alleged senior members of militant groups in Africa to its terror blacklist, blocking access to any property or interest they may have in the United States. Heading the additions was Bonomed Machude Omar, the senior commander of ISIS Mozambique, who led the deadly attack on the Amarula Hotel in the town of Palma in March. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said in a statement. In the Palma assault, the militants reportedly beheaded residents and ransacked buildings, claiming at least a dozen and displacing more than 8,000. Omar is also responsible for other attacks in Mozambique and Tanzania, Blinken said. Also named on the State Department special designated global terrorist list were Sidan Ag-Itar and Malim Hod-Brimat, senior leaders of the Mali-based Al-Qaeda branch, Jamaat Nasser as-Islam wa Muslimin, JNIM. Ali Mohammed Raj, a spokesman for extremist terrorism group Al-Shabaab, and Abu Qadar, Mohammed Abu Qadar, an operations planner for the same group, were also included. Blinken said both had planned attacks for Al-Shabaab, which Washington deemed a terrorist movement in 2008. And of course, that brings us to the end of that news highlights. And I'll be bringing Mr. Odedeyi up here shortly. So please do stay on with us.
Line ho, uyu line lelo mwana mene, mwana wanzeru. Line ho,
line oh, uyu line lelo mwana mene, mwana wanzeru. Ukacha mama wa amatengazaje, kusesa pakomo pamaiwaje.
ukacha mama
Early morning,
amatengazaje,
kusesa pakomo lamaiwaje.
magolo wali
Makolo aline
amuya mikira,
akuti line lelo mwana mene, mwana wanzeru.
magolo wali
Makolo aline
amuya mikira,
akuti line lelo mwana mene, mwana wanzeru. Line oh, uyu line lelo mwana mene, mwana wanzeru.
tinde,
Oh,
tinde, tinde,
oh, oh, line oh, uyu line lelo mwana mene, mwana wanzeru.
agire gogo wana
Gogo
madingo
wagali
gamu ya mikira kuti na madingo mwana mene mwana wanzeru agire gogo wana madingo gamu ya mikira
mukuti na madingo mwana mene yu.
mwana wanzeru
Simuku na magogo
kawizi na mwe
kawizina ne malota ine, bambo wanga tandisi enda
salandeka kawizi na mwe
kawizina mwe ni malota ine, bambo wanga tamwalira
salandeka gondo mama gondo une mama mwe
Gondo une mama mwe.
gondo mama chalamanda
tafera mwenda we. Kondo mama, kondo une mama mwe. Kondo mama, chalamanda utafera mwenda we.
Right, apologies for that breaking transmission. Are you hearing me very well now, sir? Right, thank you very much. So, as I was saying, apologies, there was a technical hitch, and I just said that you might not be hearing me out there. So, I'll be bringing in Mr. Femi Odedeyi from the Yoruba Referendum Committee to talk to us about the landmark achievements, which we have the anniversary today, and then we'll go on to some couple of other things. You are most welcome to the program, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for having me once again. And as we always say, every time we have a 2-week hiatus, something always happens. Things will happen in Nigeria that will also reinforce the point that we are trying to make. But to start off, like you said, as to the anniversary today, on August 8, 1957, that was when the Western region formally attained self-government. Before then, in 1953, the Action Group tabled a motion at the House of Representatives in Lagos. We were still under British colonial rule. The Action Group had won an election into Western Region Parliament in 1951. So by 1953, they tabled a motion for self-government for all the regions in Nigeria. In fact, that was what brought about the regional government for Nigeria and set the stage for a federal system. So they start, and on that day when they had the motion, of course, members from the north were against it, and Chief Awolowo had to step in and made a very brilliant speech, which if we read today, it will be as if he was already talking about today. Because what he said was that self-determination is a form of political independence. I'm just paraphrasing him now. Yeah. Political independence and self-determination of the people, and therefore it's not something that should be debated because it's a natural right. That they are even debating it shows the debasement of the African mind at that time. So, and the same thing applies today. So they tabled the motion in 1953, and then all the various conferences, constitutional conferences and stuff like that, delayed its passage until 1957, and then formally the Western Region government, when Awolowo was the leader of government business in April in 1951 when they won the election. So they were still a protectorate, as it were. So he was a leader of government business. But by 1957, when they attained self-government, he became the premier. And then we had the Governor General and all the other offices in Nigeria. So it was a landmark achievement that formally legalized and validated the elections they won in 1951. It legalized and validated the concept that, yes, we are right to rule ourselves, under our own platform, because what they achieved with that Western region was that our politics was controlled internally, even though we were still part of the colonial state apparatus, but our politics was controlled internally in the sense that you don't need to be a premier of Western region. You don't need to go and campaign in the north or the east.
Yeah.
To be anything, to be a member of parliament in the Western region, you only need to campaign in your local area. Awolowo was not voted for by the entire Western region. He won his election in Ikenne, which was his constituency. He won the election to parliament, and then his party, because they had the majority, became the government of the region. So you don't need money, as it were, to be running all over the place, campaigning for offices. And then we were able to control how we run our economy. Most of the councillors at the local level at that time, most of them were part-time councillors. They still had their jobs. They had their full-time jobs, and they ran the councils on a part-time basis, and they ran it effectively. We had the commissioner of police in the Western region was not under the so-called inspector general. They had an inspector general of police in Nigeria, but the commissioner of police for the Western region was responsible to the governor or the premier of the region that appointed him. Then we had a court of appeal. In fact, there was no Supreme Court at that time. The Supreme Court came later in 1963 when they wanted to put Awolowo in jail. That was when they created the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court at that time was the Privy Council in London. So any case that goes to court ends at the appeal court of the Western region. If you have to appeal, then you go to London for the appeal at that time. So and then they were able to organize the economy in such a way that what is now known in our climb as developmental economics was the norm. So when the action group said freedom for all, life more abundant, they created an economic paradigm to sustain it. So all the things that we know today as Odua investment, all the companies that we talked about, all the farm settlements, the farm ranches and all that were under such an economic paradigm. And then there's no economic point in selling the same, having the same price for petrol in Lagos and the same in Sokoto, for example. So all these things were what the regional government sustained before they truncated it in 1966. And so today, being August 8th, is a good way to remember what they did at that time, as well as to remember what we need to do today. Because what the British did at that time, is what the Nigerian government is doing today. So that then we have to look at what did the Awolowo people do? What did the action group do that allowed them to address those issues? And then it will inform on what we do today. So that is the essence of the remembrance. It's not just about saying, we did this the last time. Yes, it was good for us, but there was a process and there was something that they did that allowed them to get to that point. And that is what should be our focus for the remembrance.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. I will ask you to please let me pull you in full screen so that you can adjust so that we can see you very well.
Okay. Is it okay better now?
No, a bit. Let it go down so that we can see more. It's going up. Yes.
Like this?
Yes, it's much better. But if you could go a bit more.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Yes.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
good, sir.
All right.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Um, in the speech of Chief Obafemi Awolowo,
Yes.
when that motion was made, he made a statement,
Yes.
and I'll read. Said, "I would like to say that it appears that a considerable body of people in this house misunderstand what is even self-government. Between then and now, when we talk about self-government, are the people now actually understanding what it means by self-government?" Before you answer that, I want to premise it on some situations.
Okay.
Today, when people talk about self-government or self-determination, some people think straight away that yes, is Yoruba wanting independence and want to be out of Nigeria. I think that's just what some people think. Why some people will say that no, it's about restructuring and co. So if you, I mean, you've been in this journey over time, and with the new dispensation of Yoruba Nation now, or the agitation for the liberation of Yoruba, are we in the same situation as people of those time that Chief Obafemi Awolowo said that it seems that people don't even understand what we say when we say self-government?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I will say yes, in the sense that at that time when the Awolowo people were talking about self-government, of course, the North didn't want independence at that time. They were saying they were not ready for whatever reason and stuff like that. And so for them, that is for the North at that point, self-government is like uh, is not a natural phenomenon. In other words, they were saying that by seeking self-government, we are trying to go beyond the boundaries that the British has set for us. That was their logic at that time, that we are not capable of governing ourselves. But like Chief Awolowo explained, self-government is simply what it is, self-government. So now, the confusion now is that those, when they talk about we have passed the stage of restructuring and we now want self-determination. Self-government is simply self-determination, and self-determination is simply self-government. How you now articulate and practicalize that self-government, that is the issue. But to start saying we have passed one stage, we are going to another stage, is like not understanding the issue. Because one, you can say, okay, if you have passed the stage of what they call restructuring, I mean, if you cannot make restructuring happen, how will you make independence happen if you are not capable of making restructuring happen? So, and if we look at the history of how restructuring became a dominant definition, it was through Afenifere during the military regime when they were talking about restructuring and true federalism. So at that time, everyone was aware that the way Nigeria was being run in a unitary manner by the military is not acceptable. So they coined that term, restructuring, and restructuring to federalism and all the rest of it. So, and what it means essentially, whether you call it restructuring, even if you call it Yoruba Nation now, independence and stuff like that, we are still talking about self-government. Because if you are even in your own country, you are governing yourself. The question is, are you ready, or are we ready to relate with other nationalities in Nigeria or not? So if we say we don't want to relate with any other nationality in Nigeria, we want to be on our own and all that, that is one way of looking at it. You can now say, yes, we can relate with anybody in Nigeria or anywhere for that matter, if certain parameters are laid down. What happened when they attained self-government in 1957, which eventually led to the independence, was that the British, because the British had already rigged the system in favor of the North. Then they encouraged or forced an alliance between the North and the East against the Yoruba at that time. That is the NCNC, which was under the control of the East at that time, because the NCNC was a Yoruba party. It was founded by Yoruba people until Zik came and took over the party, and then it became an Eastern-dominated party. So they formed an alliance with the NPC so that they can destroy the West. But what the West was agitating for was that, okay, the way the Nigeria was, we had three major regions, East, West, and North. So all the minorities in those regions must also have their own regions. So they said the Midwest must have a region, the Calabar, Ogoja area must have their own region, and the Middle Belt must have their own region. So, but the alliance conspired against the West to get the Midwest out of the West, and then didn't create the regions in other places. And that is the problem that led to the problem and all the things we are facing today. So when people talk about passing the stage of one or doing the other, the question is whether you want independence outright or you want, quote unquote, restructuring. The point is you still have to deal with the structure of Nigeria. Well, I mean, to get, we can look at the Biafran example. Before, when Biafra declared its independence, that means they broke away from the Nigerian structure and created their own structure, which was the Biafran government, and then everything went the way it did. So regardless of what we do, we must deal with the Nigerian structure as it is. So what is the Nigerian structure? It is a central state. It's a centralized state, a unitary formation where the contest for power is on who gets to the center, because that is where all the money is. So we start fighting each other and who will be president, who will not be president, zoning, no zoning. It will go to the north, it will come to the south. That is all that it is. So to even talk about self-determination, you have to get rid of that structure. So how do you get rid of that structure? I mean, now you can now say, okay, in terms of terminology, you call it restructuring. If you restructure it, into what do you structure it around? And for the Yoruba Referendum Committee, we are saying, yes, each nationality, first of all, the definition is that each nationality is a federating unit. It is not the state. Because any federating, like we had in the Western region at that time, when they had Western region, they had free primary education. Others didn't. And people who are coming from different regions to come for education in the Western region. They had part-time counselors, like I said. And so we were able to determine exactly what and how we are going to carry out our own efforts. When they recognized that they needed money for the free education thing, they had what they call a tax, some kind of agricultural tax to sustain the program. And in fact, the action group lost a federal election in 1954 because of that tax in the Ilesha and Ekiti axis, before they recognized that it was actually for their own benefit. And they voted back the government back into power in 1956. So what we are saying is that the structure of Nigeria is the problem. It is, now it is now fronted or represented by the Fulani this, Fulani that. When Jonathan was in power, the Jaw were all over the place. So it was not as, I don't want to compare the level of violence between then and now, but the question is, it is not the nationality that is the problem, but the structure of Nigeria that encourages aberrant behavior from any nationality. Once we tackle that structure in whatever manner, if we have, as we are saying, we have a federal structure, I'm just using it as an example, where the Yoruba elect their own representative to that center. the Jaw, the Igbo, everybody, they get there and then they elect somebody among themselves to be whoever is going to be president. Everything we do in our West is our business. It's not going to be decided there. So if there's any Fulani roaming around and we don't want it, we have the laws in place to take care of it, and it's not the business of the center. That is what we are saying. So whether we run it, and then of course the whole question of independence is also tied to international relations and all the rest of it, which we may not go into now, but to leave it within the ambit of what we are talking about, that when Awolowo said the whole concept of self-government was misunderstood, it is the same thing that is happening now. And that is why, unfortunately for the Yoruba people, we are running into all these problems we are running into. That everybody is now scampering to support one or the other, and everybody is just talking from both sides of the mouth. So once we get the notion, like Awolowo explained, and that everyone other has explained, self-government, self-determination is simply self-government. Self-government is simply political independence. And that means autonomy, call it autonomy or whatever. The question of either restructuring or federalism or anything comes in once you want to decide whether you want to relate with other people or not. Then you establish the parameters for that relationship. So when Awolowo was advocating for regional self-government, it was within the context of the Nigerian struggle for independence. So they knew they had to relate with the East and the North because we are under one colonial rule, but they set the parameters. These are what the regional government will do. These are what the central government will do. So if at the end of the day, that relationship was abrogated, the first thing we should do is why and how was it abrogated? Then how do we correct it? If we can correct it, fine. If you cannot correct it, once we have agreed that self-determination is self-government. Self-government means, like we have been saying, simply your ability to govern yourself. It's as simple as that. So we reserve that right. We have the right to govern ourselves. What we are just saying is, how do we relate to other people? That is one. Two, how do we achieve that self-government? Because if we attain self-government under colonial imposition, the successor states to the colonial government cannot be operating like a colonial regime. So if the Nigerian government is not allowing autonomy or self-government for the peoples of Nigeria and then wants to divide all of us into states, then we have to resist it, and we have to create a political paradigm to resist it. And that is what we are doing with the Yoruba referendum. Can't hear you.
Okay, are you hearing me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. Now, I will still make reference to Chief Obafemi Awolowo's speech.
Okay.
Because when you look at his speech and what is happening now,
yes,
which is 64
years
after, it would be as if we've not actually left where we were as at that time. He made some points here. First of all, that political independence is the inalienable right of man, the right to be governed, for us to be governed by ourselves.
Yeah.
And of course, we know that Nigeria comprises of many nationalities, not just one.
Yeah.
But he went on to also say that the fact that even as at 1953, that the fact that the issue about self-government was being, or is, I mean, I'll take it back as if that time, that it was being debated at that time, that
was
it shows how humiliating, it shows a national humiliation and degradation.
Yes.
He was of the opinion that it shouldn't even be something we should
Debated.
be debating and arguing about.
Yes.
It should be something that any reasonable person should know that self-government is what should actually be on. I mean, if we're talking about the military, yes, we can say, because military is no, they did not get the power of the people to rule. They rule through coup and through the barrels of the gun. But when it comes to our own government by our own people, Chief Awolowo is of the opinion that it's not even debatable. It's not even something we should be talking about and be debating whether it should happen or it should not happen. And like I said, it's like we are just right 64 years back.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether you'll be able to answer this because it seems to be slightly complex, but I believe that you are very experienced and you are one of our elders as well. Now, if 64 years ago, Chief Awolowo has this concern about people not understanding something to the extent of debating what should not be debated, that it should be a natural occurrence.
Yeah.
That even if it's not happening, people should be bothered about it. So if we were there in 1964, and that was it was a concern then, and it's still concerned now. 64 years after. What do you think we could say is or are the factors?
Well, first of all, this thing is a political struggle that even then, anti-colonial struggle is also a political struggle. Excuse me. Therefore, there will be forces for and forces against. So what has happened is that when he made that statement at that time, there were forces against independence, even within the Nigerian colony, like I said, the North. And before then, all the forces for independence, negritude, Pan-Africanism, and all the rest, anti-colonial movements, they were springing up all over the place. So people were exercising their natural rights for self-government. That was why it was a surprise to him that some people in Nigeria will even be questioning it. And that was why he castigated the North by saying that they were reinforcing the colonial and racist perception that Black people cannot govern themselves. So the forces at play at that time, that was why I said eventually when they got regional self-government, that was the basis for the independence constitution. But the forces at play now conspired to destroy that movement. That is the NCNC and the MPC. They now conspired to destroy. So in any political struggle, in any political quest, there will always be forces for and forces against. And if you look at Yoruba political trajectory since that time, when they had the crisis in the Western region between the Action Group and the Demo, Awolowo and Akintola and stuff. So when everything in Nigeria returned to normal, there was a budding political philosophy in Yoruba land called mainstreaming. That what the Yoruba should now do is to join the central government so that we are not left behind. So that became a polarizing factor in Yoruba politics. So those who say we should join them in the center and those who say we should remain, we should not join them in the center. So again, the forces for or against were at play. Now, when you bring in the military is also not an uninterested observer. The first military coup served a political purpose. All military coups serve political purposes. So the first military coup served a political purpose, which was tied to the what I would say the NCNC in this sense, even though most of the active participants of the January 15 coup were Igbo officers. The point was that the NCNC under Azikiwe had been saying that that there were no minorities in Nigeria. Two, they don't accept the regional system. They don't accept federalism, that we are all one Nigeria. That was the NCNC mantra, that there is no division, there is not this and this and this and this and that. The NPC was saying they are ready for anything as long as they are in control. And British gave them the control, so they went ahead with it. So when the military coup took place, the military people at that time, the Ezegu and the Fadrina and all the rest of them, were following that, because this notion that there are no Yoruba, there are no Igbo, there are only Nigerians. Meanwhile, the military that threw them up, that they went into, was created by colonial forces to suppress the peoples of Nigeria. So they have been serving that purpose. So when the counter coup took place in July 1966, it was to, quote unquote, redress the losses of January. So they killed or overthrew all the southern people that they could, and then took over the government. So the military was pursuing that agenda of neutralizing the nationality, that we are not Yoruba, we are Nigerians. I mean, I'm just using the Yoruba as an example. Then by the time they were going to hand over, they also made sure, if you look at the handing over in 1979, there was still the alliance between the North and the East, MPP and MPN, and subsequent events. So the question that we ask is, who is afraid of being a nationality? Why are people afraid to say, I'm Yoruba, I'm Igbo, whether we are Nigerians or not? Because there's nothing called a Nigerian language. There are different languages, there are different nations, different. So what is the point? So that's why I said the question of forces, the balance of forces, what we call the balance of forces. So over time, because of what I would call the defeat of the Awolowo forces that championed federalism based on nationalities and languages, and Nigeria has come a long way. You remember the era at one time when they said they want, what did Babangida call it? New breed. They wanted new breed. And then they recruited all these young people and gave them money. They created NAFUND. They created ND, so all the different agencies, DFREE, all the rest of them. I started awarding contracts and making billionaires and billionaires out of them. And then those people became the political actors. And because of their origin from that military-induced political system, they became dominant. So all the forces that were seeking self-determination as self-government became even an anathema, because the military now sees itself as the creator of a new Nigeria, whatever that means. So self-government became something they pushed in the background. So over time, when the military also ran out of its own alternatives through the Abacha thing, and then the remnants of the Awolowo group started regrouping and started the whole thing about federalism and sovereign national conference and restructuring and all that, until where we are today. So it's unfortunately, the regrouping also misunderstood the question. So that when they were talking about restructuring at that time, if you look at what the Awolowo did, initially in 1951, they formed the action group. They won the election in the Western region. It was on the basis of that election that they championed all the other things that they championed. But in our own case, even though philosophically they took their cue from the Awolowo group, they were unable to create a political environment for themselves. Even the advantage we had in 1999 when the AD virtually won the whole West, the chances were blown. Why? Because we were putting the cart before the horse. You are looking at a Nigerian state without the peoples of Nigeria. But the reverse was what the Awolowo people did. They looked at the peoples of Nigeria in order to create the Nigerian state. In our own case, we are looking at the Nigerian state to create the peoples of Nigeria. And that is where so it's a contention of forces, of political forces. I mean, if, like we said, it's not debatable unless you are saying people have no right to govern themselves. Even dictators don't do that. I mean, historical dictators, if they want to do that, they will start killing everybody like Hitler did. Hitler, excuse me, Hitler, Franco of Spain, and all the rest of them. And even the colonial forces, one of the reasons they came to start killing people all over the place was because they said we cannot govern ourselves. They have the right to govern us. So once you take that right away, whether as a Nigerian state or any other state, you take the right of the people, you have already violated the natural right. So we are now saying, unfortunately, like I said, different forces will be at play. Different forces are at play. And it is now the whole question of the balance of forces within the society that will determine the success or failure of that quest. So one of the things that the enemy holds is to sustain that confusion in terms of our understanding of the issue. So when you say restructure, okay, from two perspectives. If you say restructuring, the government will come and say, what do you want to restructure? As if they don't know. Then those who are agitating for Yoruba now, they say we have passed it. When you ask them to define what you have passed, they will not be able to answer. The government that is saying, what do they want to restructure? If you tell them this is what we want to restructure, they say, no, we want to divide Nigeria. How can you divide yourself? It's not possible for me to divide myself unless I have what they call dual personality disorder, which we don't have. So what we are saying is they sustain that confusion so that they can sustain their dominance of the narrative and impose what they want to impose. So it is our own duty to restore the narrative back to its natural environment. That is the essence of the Yoruba referendum and the relationship with self-government. So all the issues about we are living, we are staying. We are not, I mean, who is living anywhere? If you say you are living, are you living your ancestral land? So that means, living means the question of the political structure that you find yourself under. It's not a physical living of any place. So that means whether it is restructuring, it is self-government, it is that, the question is, how do we retake back our rights to govern ourselves? Yeah, the audio is gone again, no? The audio, no, I can't hear.
Yeah, you hear me now. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
Still on Chief Obafemi Awolowo's motion.
Yes.
Now, the motion was raised in the House on March 31st, 1953.
Yeah.
And eventually, self-government was achieved in 1957.
Yes.
That's about 4 years.
4 years.
53 to 57. Now, the way things are being done now in Yoruba land, I mean, we have quite lots of groups that are pushing for liberation.
Yeah.
Could the quest for something to happen immediately be a danger to the liberation of the Yoruba people?
Yes, you see, political struggles is not, shall we say, mathematics, where you say 1 + 1 is equal to 2, because everyone knows it, depending on the base. So if you take it to another base, it may not be equal to 2 anyway. So, but what we are saying is, the political process, one can't give any specific time limit to it. So, because again, don't forget, we are saying it is a contention of forces. It is the balance of forces. It is your strength, your ability to marshal your strength to advance your cause. That will determine the time it will take you to get to where you are going. The Awolowo group at that time, there was colonial rule. So they moved the motion in 1953. There were forces that didn't want the motion, which Britain is supporting. There were forces that were supporting the motion. And then midway, there are other stuff that are also going on. So they will have to, at that time, they will have to make sure that they don't lose their political advantage. Because if the action group had lost in the West, all these things we are talking about will not have happened. So they have to, and since they have started the program in 1952, 51, 52, and all the rest, and the free education, which actually took off in 1955, and all that. So they had to make sure that their promises were kept, so that their political environment will be safe to achieve what they want to achieve because of the rampaging forces of opposition. When they were doing all the constitutional conferences, there was no war against British and all that. So they were doing all their constitutional conferences and stuff like that. So they had to take care of that. What do we present? It was during that process that the question of Kwara and Kogi came up, when the North insisted, again supported by the East, that the Yoruba in Kwara and Kogi, Ilorin and Kaba provinces are part of the North. They voted against the West. It was the same East that also aligned with the North that ensured that they created what they call the Lagos Territory from Nigeria, from Yoruba land.
Yoruba land, yes.
Yes. So all these things were going on that they had to contend with at that time. And it is the same thing today. So if you say Yoruba nation now, it's not a question of somebody signing on the pen and saying, okay, yeah, go away. No, because even as we are saying, and I will say this boldly, there is a movement called NINAS, Nationalities or National Indigenous Something Alliance. So they were also talking about referendum for the UN and all that. Let's leave the UN aside. But even in their own referendum, they are already saying that Lagos is not part of Yoruba land. Why did I say that? Many Yoruba organizations are supporting them. So why did I say that? In their referendum proposal, they had a place for what they call Lagos and Southwest. What is the meaning of Lagos and Southwest? Is Lagos not part of Southwest? Then they went further to say Lagos Christians. Who are the Lagos Christians? Well, we know in Yoruba land there are Christians and Muslims and all that, but that most of the Igbo in Lagos are also Christians.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, when you say Lagos Christians, you know the arithmetic, you know what will happen. So these are the things that we are talking about. That when you say now, chances are that you will not even be able to sit back and really analyze the situation and see where you are going until they, like the Yoruba will say, they use our head to break the coconut. And that will be disastrous. Yes. So when we know, I mean, like we said, when something is natural to you, I don't know the proper way to power, but when they say we are bringing a wife to you, then why are you rushing?
ẹni tí à ń gbé yàwó bọ̀ wá bá kò yẹ kó máa
garun. You know what I mean? So when you say something is natural to you, you don't need to worry too much about it. The thing is, how do you get it? So by saying you want it now, and if I say, no, let us do it this way, then you start abusing me, then it means you don't even know what you want. And that will be very unfortunate. So, and then we have seen so many aspects in history of liberation that people that engage in such, shall I say, not spontaneous, unrestrained, impatient stuff, they end up losing, because you are dealing with an enemy that is calculating, that is more powerful than you, that has all the wherewithal to destroy you, and you want to rush headlong into it. So it's something that you need to plan and diligently work towards. And then you look at the context of what is playing out, what is going on in the political arena, and then how do you transform it to your own advantage. The Awolowo group had a choice at that time, when the North said they don't want independence. And then Britain said they will only grant independence. They will grant independence if two of the regions support the move. So the West had a choice to say, well, since they don't want independence, and this was not saying it was ready and all that, they are ready to go it alone. Now, if the West had gone it alone at that time, they will have what they call the unilateral declaration of independence, and then there will be war in the West. And you have France at the background that has not given Benin Republic its independence at that time. And you have the North that is saying they don't want independence. You have the East that is saying they own Lagos. And then you are fighting a war. So we have to know that by saying, let us be methodical. Let us be methodical on these things. Yes, let us be methodical. That doesn't mean we are against self-determination. We are only saying, let us fight this war based on the circumstances we find ourselves. And to do that, we have to understand the circumstances. And the circumstances is made clear. It's a natural right. There's no argument about it. So if the opposition is bringing an argument, then you have to know that, one, you have to be able to counter that argument, and then you have to be able to overcome the argument in physical terms.
Okay, thank you very much. Viewers, we've been listening to Alagba Femi Odedeyi. That's what we call him especially when we're doing the Yoruba one. So, Mr. Femi Odedeyi from Yoruba Referendum Committee. Thank you very much. We're going for a short ad break now. But when we come back, we'll continue with that discussion. Please do stay on with us.
OYTV.
Right, welcome back. You are still on to OY Media Scotland. Samuel Udari Yorokon is my name, and I still have our guest for the day, Mr. Femi Odedeyi, is still right on. And remember, what we actually celebrating today is the 64th anniversary of the achievement of self-government for the Western region and Nigeria, and of course, the other region as well. I'll be bringing him back on, and we'll kick off from where we stopped. You are welcome back, sir.
Thank you very much. Alagba, Yerokun.
Now, one of the questions I have for you before, you mentioned something briefly about it in the first segment. And it has to do with the Yorubas in Kogi State.
Yes.
There's a report that came out, I think it was yesterday or today, where we had the proposed or the alleged proposal of 20 states by Nigeria Senate. And I'm going to ask you two questions on that. And the first one is to ask whether the proposal for those 20 states, with the 30 states we have already, and the challenges we have about most of these states not being able to generate their administrative bill, and now the Senate is proposing another 20.
Yeah.
Is this in the interest of the Nigerian people? That's the first question. Then the second question, from that proposal, from the list, I saw that they want to create Okun State from Kogi State. Obviously, Okun State are the Yoruba part of that Kogi State. Now, on the views that you've expressed before, that creation of states is like just dividing the Yoruba people for political purposes.
Yeah.
Do you think, with all what we're saying about Yoruba coming together to be under one political umbrella, not as a party, but the political umbrella where our elections are within the region, and with just sending representatives to the center? Do you think that this proposal by the Senate to divide the Yoruba further is in the interest of the Yoruba people? So the first one is this 20 states proposal, bearing in mind that most of the states now cannot generate their bill, the administrative bill. We are not even talking about the money for infrastructure like roads and the administration, that majority of them cannot generate it. They have to wait on the federal government. So is that proposal in the interest of the Nigerian people generally? And then coming right into the Okun Kogi states, is this in the interest of the current agitation for the liberation of the Yoruba people?
Right off the bat, the proposal is like a joke. I mean, I don't see any, with all respect to all of them, I'm not insulting them, but any sane person will recognize that the least Nigeria needs now is to further create more states, no matter how. So whatever it is that came out of that committee's meeting or recommendation is the product of what I would call a diseased mind. Their minds are diseased. Fortunately, the spokesperson of the National Assembly, I think it was Ajibola Bashiru, who now came out and said, no, they didn't make the recommendation. They only asked INEC to conduct the referendum for the state, which doesn't make any sense. Number one, like you said, and everyone knows this. This is, the Yoruba capture, they say, Aroju. States are going, we have 36 states, they are going to beg for allocation from Abuja every month. We now want to create 20 more, which will make it 56. And the 56 will still be trying to beg for allocation from the same money. And the money is not even increasing, it is decreasing. So that's why I called it the product of a diseased mind. And whoever is part of it has a diseased mind. It's as simple as that. If we say we are human beings and we are saying, even if we say self-government for Nigeria as a whole, or for Nigerians, and we say it is a natural right that is not debatable, that means we have the capacity to think about solutions to our problems, not repeating the same things every time. Somebody said, when you repeat the same thing every time and expect a different result, that is an example of insanity or something like that. We have been creating states since 1976 and no problem has been resolved. And now you come out and say you want to create more states. Is that not insanity? So when I say diseased mind, it's not an insult. It's a very apt description. Because that is, I mean, I don't know who said it, or was it Einstein or somebody who made that statement. You are doing the same things every time, expecting a different result. And we know the results that we have been having. So that is insanity. Even if the man is not disease, but it's insanity. Okay, we have that one. Now, more importantly, the states were created to destroy the nationalities in Nigeria. Let's look at it. What happened when the military took over, and then we had they canceled the Ironsi canceled the regions, and then the war, and then when they won the war, they created 12 states and all that. So we had western states, and then they created Lagos State plus western states. If not for the insights of this man, Mr. CSO Akonte, who was the then secretary to the Western state government, he now said once they saw the trend, that at that time, all these Odua investment group did not exist. I mean, they existed as companies under the WNDC, Western Nigeria Development Corporation. So he now said they must establish what he called Odua Holdings to be the holding group for all these companies. Otherwise, we will lose them. So before they split Western State into three, Oyo, Ogun, I think, and Ondo or whatever, they split it into three, but they had already created Odua Holdings so that all these companies were no longer directly under the WNDC. They were now under Odua Investments. And despite all the military shenanigans at that time, that was what sustained it till today. So the creation of states was a deliberate ploy to destroy the nationalities. And like I said earlier, the Nigerian army was a creation of colonial rule, which was a negation of our natural right to exist as Yoruba people or Igbo people or whatever people that we are. So that is in continuation of that process. So when they now split the West into three, and then they further split it into how many states and all that, we can see the trajectory. Now, the Okun people, especially, and I think the Yoruba in Kwara State, the Okun Development Association actually submitted a proposal that they want a referendum to be united with the Yoruba in the Southwest. But now the National Assembly now comes and says they should have their own state. The Okun people, through the Okun Development Association, were not asking for a state. They said they want to be joined with their Yoruba king. The Okun people you have the Ibolo Oshun in Oshun State and stuff like that. They are not asking for it. They said we are Oshun people. We are from Ila, all these things and stuff. So, but now they want to create a state they said they want to create a state for them, and then further dividing us, at least the Yoruba side. And how are they going to do it? They now said the INEC should go and conduct a referendum. And we know what INEC is. They have already rigged any election. When they said somebody had 12 million votes in the bank, where did they get that information from? So when you have an electoral agency that already has a bank for somebody, and then you want the agency to come and conduct a referendum. You have already known this. So at the end of the day, they might even conduct the referendum and say, Okun people don't want to stay. They want to be where they are. So what do you do about it? So what we are saying, that's why we are saying this move by the National Assembly further justifies the need for a Yoruba referendum. And it is not just a question of argument, but now the question of all those of us who are talking about Yoruba liberation one way or the other. This is the time for us to come and then put pressure on our houses of assembly to conduct our referendum, and includes, because the bill that we have includes provision for Kwara and Kogi Yoruba people. So if the National Assembly, whether they said they want to create states or whether, as their spokesperson says INEC should, it's just that they put it to INEC to conduct it, it comes back to the natural right for self-government. So what we are saying is, whether they have diseased mind or they have correct mind, let's leave that aside. That's my own interpretation, and I don't mean to insult them. But let's leave that. That's, what you call a jitprop. But let's leave that aside. So let's go to the substance of the issue. That if the National Assembly says they want INEC to conduct a referendum for these people, it is wrong. What we are saying is, it is the people themselves that have a right to decide what they want. And the people already have an assembly in place that can do it. It is not the business of INEC to conduct that kind of referendum. It is not the business of the Nigerian National Assembly, because by asking INEC to do it, National Assembly has already abridged the right of Okun people into the assembly is not Okun, the assembly is not Yoruba, the assembly is not even Fulani, the assembly is not Igbo. All sorts of people just gather there for whatever reason, and they call themselves the National Assembly. So if we say self-government is a natural right for political independence, then it is the people that are concerned that should organize their referendum themselves and decide where they want to be. So that was what happened although it was not a referendum in 1953 or 1950, but there was an election, even though it was not, Action Group was not a purely Yoruba party, but it represented the interests of Yoruba people in that region at that time, and of course the interests of other people. So, but it was the people in the region that voted in that election. It was not a pan-Nigerian election, so like we have been saying. So if the National Assembly is serious, one, all they need to do is to say, let the people conduct their referendum through their various assemblies, not INEC. That is one. Two, if the people, that is us, are also serious about what we are demanding for, then this is the time for us to put the pressure on our legislators to conduct that referendum on our behalf. And that way, we can retrieve our inalienable right to self-government. And more important, and then we put out a press statement recently, on the anniversary of the 64th thing, where we also made the statement that when our governors are now liaising with the National Assembly on constitutional review, they should not do that behind our backs. What I mean by that, or what we mean by that, is the governors should conduct, or the Houses of Assembly, a referendum among their own people first. It is the result of that referendum they will present to whoever they want to present it to, and not the other way around. Because most of the people that are in the National Assembly, yes, like Jibola Bashiru is a Yoruba person. He was voted for in Osun State, I think Osun Central, and all the rest of them. But they did not vote for them on the basis of a Yoruba party program. They campaigned and won their elections on the basis of a pan-Nigerian program, which did not leave room for a Yoruba party. So it is possible for Anajibola Bashiru to win an election to the Senate on a Yoruba platform. He will behave differently than having to win such an election on a quote-unquote pan-Nigerian platform, where he will now have to be looking at his Borno State counterpart or Sokoto State senator. Oh yeah, what do you think? Then they will start arguing among themselves. No, but if he went there as a Yoruba senator, let's assume, I'm just using that as an example, his argument will not be with the Sokoto senator. His argument will be with his Osun people. Oh yeah, Mr. Bashiru, you say we should do this, you are doing that. What is your problem? Then you have to answer to that. So what we are saying in essence, like I said, the two questions are linked. The fact that the National Assembly is even talking about creation of states is like it's not something that we should even, it just further compounds the problem of Nigeria. And it shows that the people in the National Assembly have no clue as to how to address it. And like I said, a person doing something repeatedly, hoping for a different result, is the best definition of insanity. So then the second part is, of course, the division of Yoruba land is very palpable there. They also, okay, look at what is happening now. When we say it is the structure, those who are saying we have passed the structure in, when we say it is the structure of the Nigerian state that is the problem, it is not, well, the Fulani are doing this and that, and we can deal with that. They now, they included Ibadan State and the Jebu State in the list of the new state. Yes. So now let's leave the Okun aside. Let's look at, so if they get away with it, we will be battling with whether we want Jebu State or Ibadan State, and we'll be saying, we want Ibadan State, we want this, we want that, and the Fulani will be running around, running amok. But the Nigerian state will probably get its way, have an Ibadan State, have an Jebu State. They will just be, so the governors of those states will not be setting up their own Amotekun and all that. But the question is, the Nigerian state that is intact, whoever is the president, will have determined how you react. And that is a negation of your right to self-governance. So I will simply tell our listeners, Yoruba people, they can't ignore what they are saying. I mean, ignoring the sense that it doesn't make any sense. But to now redouble our efforts to get our legislators to quickly work on that referendum. That is, if we want in our own region or our own environment, each city can be a state on its own if we want it that way. We don't need any referendum for that. We have Oba all over the place. We can say all the and the Obas call themselves now Kinikon land. They all have their land. So let each of the land be a state. That is our own business. It is not for anybody to come and do that for us. Ibadan land, or Okun land, Iwo land, Iru land, Egba land, or whatever land, any kind of land that we want to call it, they can be administrative centers. That is what we will decide ourselves if it pays us. So, and that is the essence of self-government, not somebody sitting down somewhere and saying, "We are INEC, go and conduct a referendum for them to go and see." If we are not careful with all these things going on, the going Lagos will also say, as they are saying, Lagos is no man's land. They want a referendum to determine Lagos for them. Yes, where do we go from there? So that is the essence, the importance of what that we thank God also that they are exposing themselves. That is the Nigerian central government. Yeah. It's also exposing itself, and all we need to do is to see it, that yes, this is the way out for this thing, because they are exposing all the limitations. Because what they did, frankly, I don't see anybody saying, I mean, that's why I use the word disease mind. I don't mean to insult them, but I mean, or no, look for
Yes.
yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. The way things are,
Yeah.
because about a few weeks back, the governors proposed 6 regions,
Yeah.
which the leaders in Yoruba land obviously rose up against.
Yeah.
That the issue has gone beyond 6 regions. There has to be restructuring. I mean, in whatever definition they've given that.
Yeah.
And then we are now coming to this one that is the proposal or claimed or alleged proposal. Obviously, they said they didn't propose to create, but then they are doing something.
Something
They
along
are
that
doing
line.
something
Yeah.
about it. So,
Yeah.
so at the point now, because like you said, people should begin to see the way our political representatives are.
Yeah.
If we are already struggling with something, with the structure, and they are now proposing to set up more states, I mean, it shouldn't even come, like you said, it shouldn't even come to the debate at all.
Yeah.
Nobody should even mention about it. What people should be looking at, how do we consolidate the states that we have in order to ensure that they can self-sustain.
Yeah.
But this is what they are coming with now. Yeah. And in the past, when people have spoken about we need a new constitution, the National Assembly stated it clearly that we can only shift some few things. We can't change the constitution. We can only shift some few things about. And we've had Ogbeni Ondo State Governor.
Yeah, Arakuni.
Clearly saying when the Nina's force majeure and this stuff came on, that the Yoruba people have never sat down anywhere to decide this is what we want. We've also have Chief Femi Falana, who happens to be a lawyer. He's also said that I mean, have we conducted any referendum to decide what we want to do? So it would seem that a push for referendum is even good that the National Assembly, although the Senate, although it was something else they want to do, but the fact that they even mentioned that referendum,
yes,
I think people should latch on it.
Yes,
but push it in a way where it is actually us that is requesting for that referendum, not from the National Assembly, not from the Senate or the House of Rep, but from the state houses of assembly and the governors, and which I believe is what you have in the petition, which has garnered over 10,000 signatures. People are still signing. I check it is actually about 10,690 at the moment. And today also, the Yoruba committee submits petition for referendum on own nation. And I'm reading that from the Nation. I also learned that it's also in Tribune for today. I might be going into other media outlets before the week runs out.
Yes.
This tallies with what is being celebrated today as anniversary of the achievement of self-government, especially in relation to Western region in Nigeria. And that is the period we all believe that Nigeria worked.
Yes.
Because while the Western region was pushing on, being the first among the first, I mean, we also have the North with their Grand North Pyramid. They were doing well.
Yeah.
And then we have the East on their own, they were doing well also.
Yeah.
So with what has gone live now, aside from signing the petition, because I know the call is still out there for people to continue to sign.
Yeah.
What other steps should the people take? Maybe if they might need to engage with their representatives at the State House of Assembly to actually call the attention to this, or are there other things that people should do?
Yeah. Yeah. There are several things that we can do, and there are several things we should do. One, the petition started out, and like we said, every time we reach 5,000, we are going to be submitting it to them, and we submitted it to them. And, that is one way of doing it. Other things that we can now do is, okay, now that we are at these crossroads in Nigeria or in Yoruba land, we can now start putting pressure on our houses of assemblies differently. You see, if we organize a rally at the House of Assembly for a referendum, it will be more productive than what has happened before. If we get all our elders in Yoruba land, our elders and leaders of political movements in Yoruba land, to stand behind the referendum, the Yoruba referendum, it will make additional impact on the governors. Like you said, Arakun said, okay, where did we get together? Okay, let us get together. So when Papa Adebanjo went to the Abuja in their Southern Middle Belt meeting and all the rest of it, and he read out what Afeniferi's position is on the restructuring or whatever and all that, everything he read tallied with what we have put in the draft bill for a referendum. So all that needs for him to do is to endorse the methodology of achieving it, which is the Yoruba referendum that we have mentioned. So two things we can do at our different levels, either at the state level or at the regional level. We can even continue, aside from signing the petition for the thing on this platform, we can organize public meetings or town hall meetings with our representatives on this issue, on the referendum, especially now that the National Assembly is running around with its own thing. So that what we are saying now is that we don't want our heads to be shaved in our absence. So we have to cry out that we cannot allow the National Assembly to pass an amendment that will further harm us. So we have to rise up now to do all these things. If we have to organize rallies in front of the assemblies, let us do so. If we have to, we don't need to be running all over the place and all the time. Of course, the police and the DSS and everybody, they will start coming around and stuff like that. There are many ways of organizing rallies. If they don't want us to converge, we can pass leaflets to people all over the place. We state what we want. I mean, all these things can be done, but it needs the cooperation of everybody. It is not a question of one-upmanship. My organization is not in the forefront, so I'm not going to be part of it, and I'm not the leader of the movement. This thing is it is very good that this whole concept of the referendum is not a thing for one organization to do. It is, in fact, those who are going to claim credit for it are the houses of assembly and the governors. And we have no truck none of the members of the committee is a member of any assembly. So, although we are honorable people, although they call themselves honorable also. So, what we are saying is there are many things we can still do. There are many things we can call on our people to do. There are many things we can call on our elders to do. There are many things we can call on our people to do. I mean, our leaders to do. And what I will just say is that over time, we will be getting there. We are in communication with each other, and then we will try to explain things to each other and see where how we can pursue this necessity at this point in time, because it will be damaging to us. Regardless, let's forget about sloganeering now. If the National Assembly gets away with this constitutional stuff, it will be damaging to us. And then the question they will ask us, even if you go to the United Nations and all the rest, what were you doing when these things were going on? Are we sleeping? Should we sleep? Or should we say because we don't believe in Nigeria, we are going to fold our arms, and then Nigeria will come and impose itself on us? So let's my thing is, yes, there are many things to do, and there are many things that we can do. I just mentioned some of them briefly because it is not we are not playing a game of one-upmanship against anybody. All we are saying is let us concentrate on this battle and let us win it, and we can win it. So we will be in touch with everybody, and we thank everybody that's been in touch with us. And I will say we are in touch with many of the leaders of these organizations, and we do communicate regularly. We try to explain things to each other, and we will get there. We will get there.
Right. Let's move on to the political permutation that is happening at the moment in Nigeria.
Yes.
And then after that section, then we'll come around to interaction between some leaders in Nigeria and Benino's leaders.
Okay.
So first, in Nigeria, IBB had an interview of recent where he was alleged to have said that neither Atiku or Tinubu should govern Nigeria. Something like that.
Okay.
Now, we know that IBB, I mean, majority of people believe that is one of the problems of Nigeria.
Yeah.
That from his time, he's been part and parcel of different several coups, and people also believe that most of the leaders, if not all, have to actually seek his permission. Sort of. Maybe there are other leaders too that they have to meet, but that is a key person that people have to see before they'll be able to successfully get into the seat of power. And why we may not know of all the other ones, people have made reference to the current president, Muhammadu Buhari, that is contested about, I think, three times, going to about 12 years.
Yeah.
And he even decided that he will not contest again. And we know during that period, because of the issue he had with IBB during their time, he never interacted with IBB. But for the last election, which brought him into power, he went with some other political party leaders to visit IBB. And of course, bam, he became the president. Whatever Maradonic tactics that were used. So people believe that if IBB is not involved, the person will not get to that post. Now, for IBB to be coming out this time, bearing in mind that the activities, political activities for 2023 have started already.
Huh?
Do you think that we've got to a point where we don't need to listen to some of these leaders again, but that we should take steps from our own personal research on what is good for us? Is it time?
Yes, absolutely. It is time. That's what I mean by absolutely. And that's why we are saying that the Yoruba Referendum Committee, that's why we are saying the necessity for the Yoruba referendum is for our own political survival. Because once we have that referendum, we have punctured the Nigerian state and any influence that Babangida might have on it. Because the only option they have is, that is the Nigerian government and Babangida himself, is to deny us the ability to have the referendum, deny the referendum results, and therefore say that we don't matter. At that point, the Nigerian government will have placed itself squarely in opposition to our interests. And of course, that what we do will be left for us to decide. We don't need to debate that also at this point.
Yes.
Okay, so, but the thing is this, when a Babangida, becomes the kingmaker, as it were, earlier on in this discussion, I was talking about political interests that are fueling all these kind of things and stuff like that. So that shows you that the interests that Babangida represents are now probably at their wits' end. Otherwise, he will not come out to speak. He didn't just come out to say his preference for Atiku or Abubakar. They already probably made up their mind as to who they want to be president, whoever it is. That's why he was able to. So he represents those forces, and he thinks, or they think, that he's the only other person, especially from the north, that can come out openly and make such a pronouncement. And because they all work within the same political milieu, the contestants, those who want to be president, those who want to be this and that, they probably have their different connections and all that, so they know how they manipulate each other. So he can be in a position to be the master manipulator. Otherwise, he simply should just be consigned to history. He has no, it's an insult. It's like rubbing salt on the wound for Babangida to come and pontificate about who is fit to rule Nigeria or not. He's simply rubbing salt on a wound. So it's a further manifestation of the destruction of our natural rights to self-governance for someone like him to be making such statements. So the thing is that, like you said, and I agree completely, it is time that we sit back and say, wait a minute, when are we going to stop? We are not, let me use the current situation, we are not cows that one down will be down. If you get my, I'm just using that. So it is time for us to really sit down. And fortunately for us, that's why we say, it's like, not to sound repetitive, we have the referendum in our hands. Let us go for the referendum. That is the only, when we go for the referendum, like I said, the Nigerian state and all the Babangidas of this world, the only option they have is to say no, and they won't allow us to hold it. They can even come around and then dissolve the governments in the West, in the Yoruba land, and impose the administrator and all the things they can do all those things. But because we have it in our hand, we can also respond in kind. We will no longer be running around. Who do we align with? Who don't we allow it? Because we already said we have taken back our natural rights to self-governance. And you can't take it away from us. It's as simple as that. So anything that we do, anything that we can do, we'll be able to do it at that point. And they can't sustain the attack against us. That one I'm very confident about. So the only thing is we should be able to have that political environment in our hands. And then, again, because the referendum is not about who is going to be president, or not. The referendum is about the right to self-governance. So anybody that doesn't mean that no Yoruba person should engage. Even when he said I think he said he doesn't want Atiku or Tinubu. That's his own problem. That's his own problem. If Tinubu wants to run, let him run. Why? I mean, we can't allow anybody to come and take over Yoruba space. If it is Tinubu that will occupy the space for us, so be it. If it is Alagbayerokun, so be it. So we can't allow. It's a simple political move. When Atiku was going to contest May 20, whatever, the last time they had that election, he went to Wono in Sokoto State and spoke in Fufude, saying that he's a Fulani man and blah, 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 blah. Fine, no problem. I have no problems with that. He now came to Ibadan and started talking about true federalism. That shows that they just think that we are fools. Why can't he talk about true federalism in Wono in Fufude language? Because they think that, okay, what did the Yoruba want? They want true federalism. We'll promise them and then get there. So we have to be mindful of these things, that yes, Babangida may want whoever he doesn't want to want. That's his own problem. We also have the right, and we must ensure that Yoruba land does not fall into any quote-unquote foreign hands politically in that respect. At the same time, we push for the referendum, for the Yoruba referendum against the Nigerian state as to our self-governance. So those are the two ways we can approach the issue.
Okay, thank you very much. And just like I promised, we'll be coming around to Chief Sunday Igboho's case in Benin Republic. There was a report this week that Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, the ex-president of Nigeria, had an interaction with the president of Benin Republic.
Yes.
Do you see it as something positive?
Yes, of course. I will tell you a funny story about Obasanjo. I think he was the head of state. He was still the president or something. So they had a meeting in Equatorial Guinea. That island of Nigeria. Right. And Obasanjo was there, and the other West African heads of states or president, they were all there. So the soldiers in Equatorial Guinea, they just marched into the hall and said that there was a coup in Equatorial Guinea and they have taken over the government. And Obasanjo said, "Are you crazy? While I'm here, you are having a coup. Get out of this place." The man said, "Yes, sir." The man said, "Yes, sir, I'm bowed down." And that was the end of the coup. I believe that story because it was told by a diplomat who was there.
Okay.
So it's not a joke. So Obasanjo, at least within West Africa, he can play his game the way he wants to play it, and that's his own issue. So on the Igboho case, I mean, it is proper. Actually, it is proper and neat for him to make that intervention, if that is what he made, and the other people also. Not simply because of the person of Igboho, but because of the symbolism of it. Because we know what will happen to him if he comes under the Nigerian government. And that will have been a lesson to other people that, that is one. Two, Again, it supports what we are saying about Yoruba people and self-governance and stuff. There are Yoruba people in Benin Republic
Yes.
who are in government and who are not in government and who are living there, proper Yoruba people, not just migrants. Right. So if somebody wants to do anything, seek asylum or seek their protection, they should be able to protect that person. And it's not a question of running every period in history where you have national liberation movements. You find instances where people escape to places where they think they have a better political protection. And they will go there on exile, they will go there and start doing whatever it is that they're doing. So it is proper for him to be doing all that. So that Obasanjo took it upon himself is also a reflection. Whether he's doing it genuinely or for opportunistic reasons, the point is the fact that the Buhari regime will not succeed to turn his face on Yoruba people. Now they will be saying that, look at what, if the report is true, what the vice president and the attorney general on the APC caretaker committee issue.
Yes.
So the APC caretaker committee, the attorney general is saying one thing, and the vice president says, no, this is the way it should go. So let Buhari come and then see where he goes, and then we'll see what will happen. So everyone is playing, whether if Buhari comes and sides with the attorney general, whether the vice president and his people will remain, they may remain in the APC for some time, but whether they will allow that to determine what they do, we will see. So everything is coming to a head. And like I used to say, Nigeria has become what the Yoruba say, when the elephant is dead, everybody will be coming with his own knife to cut. So that is what is happening. So everybody is coming with his own knife now, and they want to cut everything. But for us, it's a good thing that regardless of Obasanjo's past or present, or whether he can order anybody around in West Africa, the point is, I mean, he has risen up to the occasion, and we all know the implication of what is going on. And of course, this has nothing to do with whether Igboho is a leader or not, or whether it's this and that. That's not the point, because it happened in Benin Republic during Adeko, when Professor Segun Banjo was arrested for bringing arms, trying to bring arms into Nigeria to fight Abacha. So they arrested him, and the Abacha government wanted him to be brought to Nigeria. But the Yoruba people in Benin Republic rose up in his defense and ensured that he was not brought back. So these are the things that we should be looking at. And then Obasanjo, I think he can order the Benin president. We sit down there, and the man will sit down. Anyway, I'm just kidding. So let's,
Yeah.
So
thank you very much, sir. And just still on Igbo, the last 1 week have been quite active.
Yeah.
The hits they were arrested,
yes,
or kidnapped, so to say, by the DSS.
Yeah.
They said they've been issued bail. They've been granted bail.
Yeah.
And of course, at Ibadan also, the case that was filed for the damages to Igbo's house, there was a report also that the judge in that matter has said that the DSS should not attempt to arrest Sunday Igboho. Is pending. So are these both the ones that is happening at Abuja, with the bail granted to the eights, and of course the judgment coming from Ibadan? Are we seeing something positive coming from the judiciary? Or
I will say yes and no. Yes, in the sense that the judiciary has to respond to the political situation that they find themselves. They can't just behave as if this is a purely technical issue. Everyone knows it's a political matter, which they are trying to resolve through the legal machinery. So the judiciary has to respond to it, whether they like it or not. Unfortunately, we have some judges that can stand up to pressures, and some that may not care, because you can have a judge that will say, maybe we just say, okay, put them in jail, and then nothing happens. Like when Buhari in 1984 arrested Fela, when he got Fela arrested for nothing actually, and the judge that sentenced Fela to jail went eventually, and then Fela said, "He don't beg me." The judge went and apologized, and that was, how Fela was released from. So, judges may come under pressure. It depends on their character and their predisposition to resist that pressure or succumb to it. When the Abacha government was declared illegal and unconstitutional, I think it was by one judge, Justice Dolapo, I've forgotten her name now. They went to court and they said the government is illegal. So each judge is with his or her own conscience, because this thing is very clear. It's not just a question of technical violation of the law. It's a political movement. The illegal inquisition, the illegal invasion, everything that happened has a political motive. Even the purpose for even attacking them has a political motive, because at the point that they were attacked, they were not conducting any illegal activity. Before the attack, they were not conducting any illegal activity. So it was a planned move and all that. So that's why I said yes and no. That yes, some judges can be courageous enough to stand against any kind of pressure, if there are any pressures. Some may just not care. They can just say, well, that's their own business. And then whatever, like it was like Justice Showemimo, when he jailed Awolowo the other time, and he said his hands are tied. That means they put pressure on him to do what he did, even though it was not legally justified. So, but during the June 12 crisis, he went to his farm in Abeokuta. That was 1993. That was 30 years later. He went to his farm. When the people saw him, somebody just pointed out to that was the man that jailed Awolowo. It was just because some people pleaded for his life. He would have been killed that day. That was what he did 30 years ago, came to haunt him 30 years later. The Yoruba say, hot. So, I mean, the man, he had to. So, somebody that was Showemimo, let's go for him. That was it. So, yes, if they are courageous, we thank them for being courageous to resist the devil, as it were. The Bible says, resist the devil and it will flee from you. So if they resisted the devil. So we thank them for that. Those who are still prevaricating, maybe they want promotion, maybe they want this and they want that, because they will dangle all kinds of things in their faces, that they will have the courage to resist and stand not only on the truth, but on the law and on the conviction of their conscience.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time. 64th anniversary of achievement of self-government, Western region, Nigeria. And of course, that's the same day, 64 years after, when you launched the petition.
Yes.
That would be the second letter.
The second letter
to the governors and the members of the state houses of assembly. And like I said, it's on the Nation and of course in Tribune as well.
Yes.
I think other media outlets are picking it up as well,
Yes.
and we hope that it will generate a sort of public discussion,
yes,
so that at least, since now there seems to be like a slight vacuum in
yeah,
the agitation,
mhm.
I hope that what's coming on now will be able to engage the intellectuals as well,
Yes,
and also the students. Like we've always mentioned, students as I mean, the students of any country have always been actively involved in any push for liberation. So we hope that this will be able to get into our higher institutions. Now,
yes.
I won't allow you to go without your final words. I mean, for today,
For today,
uh, especially to the people that have signed,
yes,
that have and that will still sign. What I have right with me, like I said, we've got about 10,690 signatures,
690. Yes.
but also it's been shared 8,473 times, which is quite very, very encouraging and massive. So I'll give you the session to talk to the people that
Yeah.
have been doing that work, those that will still get involved,
Oh,
and of
yes.
course, a last word for our political leaders as well, governors and members of state houses of assembly, to
Yes.
listen to the voices of the people
Oh,
who they are representing. Over
yes.
to you, sir.
Thank you very much. First of all, we thank those who have signed, thanking them because they took it upon themselves to show their commitment to what they believe in. Those who have not signed, we encourage them to sign and that their signatures will not be in vain. The most important message is to the houses of assembly and the governors of our states, and of course to the Yoruba people in general, bearing in mind what we are doing today, which is the 64th anniversary of regional self-government for the Western region, that while there may be hits and misses, what I want everyone to understand is that without what they achieved at that time, we probably will not be even where we are today. We might be living differently under different circumstances. But the fact that those people took it upon themselves at that time to fight against the British so that the British will leave us alone. Awolowo made a statement at that point that we were governing ourselves, which was true before the British came, that even if we were not governing ourselves the right way, that self-governance is still better than benevolent foreign influence governance. So in the spirit of that, today we could have sat down and say, oh yeah, we achieved this in Western region, we achieved that in Western region. We all know that. Everyone has an idea of what happened. But the point is, the situation they found themselves at that time that led them to seek regional self-government is almost similar to the situation we find ourselves now, that is asking us to seek the same kind of regional governance. And the circumstances under which they operated, which was under colonial rule, and the fight against colonial rule was not even a question of whether they got it on a platter of gold or not. If they didn't make the demand, they would not have received it. I think it was Frederick Douglass, one of the abolitionists in America, who said that power consists nothing without a demand. So for us to remember that period at that time is to make the demand at this time. And that when the National Assembly is now running around trying to circumvent self-governance, we need to sit up and insist and pursue our route to self-governance. And this is not a question of sloganeering or whether we have passed one stage of All we need to do is to state what we want. Whatever stage that we have passed or we have not passed will come and meet us when we have what we want in writing. And that's why we said the annexure to the Yoruba Referendum Bill says we want one regional government for Yoruba land. We will control our security. But that one, we don't need to go into details of that. We will control our economy. We will be paying money to, if there's going to be any relationship with any other nationality, we'll be paying some kind of tax to them. They have no control over our internal politics, internal economy, and all that. So once we have that established, then whatever stage that comes, will have to meet us at our establishment. So we are not going to be the one shifting. They will be the one shifting. So it's not a question of whether we have passed one stage and we are going to another stage. It's a question of this is what we want and we stand by it. Any stage that comes must relate with what we stand with. So, and it gives it validity and legitimacy by having the referendum conducted by the House of Assembly. And like we said, it is not rocket science. The government can come, that is the Buhari government can come and say, okay, they dissolve everybody and put military people as administrators. So if they do that, well, it will be left for us to allow it or not. We can take care of that. But we need that regional expression to be able to resist. Otherwise, what they are doing is what they will get away with. They will create Ibadan State, and when they create Ibadan State, who knows who they are going to put there as the chairman or governor of Ibadan State and the rest. And so we are faced with a system, a state that is relentlessly pursuing the destruction of our nationality and other nationalities. But since we are Yoruba, we are talking about Yoruba issues. And it has been happening since 1976. And we are saying we have a history to look back, to learn from. And there is also a saying that says that those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeating it. We don't want to be repeating history. We want to learn from it so that we can transform it, so that we can create a future that we can call our own. And that is what self-governance is all about. Self-governance doesn't mean you can relate with another person. That is, the Yoruba cannot relate with any other nationality. No, it doesn't mean we don't like one nationality or we like another. No, all it means is this is what the Yoruba people want. This is where we stand. If you want to relate with us, you have to admit, you have to agree with that. If you don't agree with it, then you can go away. But we need to have that before we can progress. And that was what the Awolowo people did, because they created that Western region. And if you look at the history of what has happened, each of the regions had its own development corporations at that time. Like I mentioned earlier, it is only Odua Investments that is still functioning. Why? Because they created it outside the ambit of what the military was doing. All the other regions in the north, they had the Interim Common Services Agency. In the east, they had whatever they call it. But everything collapsed. But because of the insight and the foresight of certain people, like I mentioned, Mr. C.S.O. Akonde, may he so rest in peace. He died a long time ago. That brought about this Odua thing. We won't have anything to be proud of now. So those of our leaders who have gone have done their own. Those who are present can do their own. And those of us who are followers can also do their own, so that when history comes to be recorded, we will not be found wanting in the record books of life. Thank you. And it's an interesting struggle. It might be difficult, but it's interesting, and we should be happy to be part of itself.
Yeah.
And so there's no need for rancor. There's no need for, we will joke, we will laugh, we will, relax, because we are confident in our ability to drive what we are doing. So there's no need for tension. That's why my Alagba is here.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much. Yes.
Alagba Femi Odedeyi from Yoruba Referendum Committee.
Yes.
The struggle keeps on as activities are coming on. Also, we are expecting Pastor Bakari to get into
the movement. Yes. Thank you for that. Thank you for bringing his name up. Yes.
Anytime from now. So
yes,
he's already said people should put on their dancing shoes for August. So maybe before the end of August, or probably before we have you again in 2 weeks' time, he will have started his own engagement, and then we'll see where things are going.
Yes.
Also, we're hoping to pick up from people that are engaging or that will be engaging with the piece that has gone out on behalf of Yoruba Referendum Committee for the petition. As people are engaging with it, we'll obviously be harvesting those comments and views of the people about it. I was checking your Facebook, Yoruba Referendum Committee Facebook.
Okay.
And I see that more people are clicking like.
Okay.
On it. I think it's about 1,900 and something likes at the moment.
Okay.
And I've also seen activities on the petition that some people are signing about 8 minutes ago. So well done and congratulations again for the landmark step that's been taken to coincide with the 64th anniversary of achievement of self-government for the Western region of Nigeria. So until 2 weeks' time when we have you again, please do stay safe and healthy. And of course, we know, as usual, that we'll have packed news
before it comes. Yes.
By the time you come back. So thank you very much for your time today.
Okay. Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
You.
Yes.
You're most welcome.
All right. Thank you.
All right, sir.
Okay.
All right, viewers, thank you very much for staying on with us. And that is us coming to the end of the program for today. On behalf of the Yoruba Referendum Committee, represented by Mr. Femi Odedeyi, today we want to say thank you to everyone. And please do join us on Saturday next week when we'll be taking on some of the programs that we have, and of course on Sunday. Remember that on Saturdays we're here at 3 p.m. Except if there are exceptions, and of course on Sundays at 6 p.m. Do stay safe, and we will see you then.
Kí ló dé o?
ẹ̀yin ṣòro bí ewé kí ló dé ẹ̀yin ṣe èèyàn bí ọba èyí ti ṣe àgbà ìlú aṣọ yèrè.